This is another episode of the Flight Ringers podcast. I'm David King. That's Dan Spottswood.
It's good to be here. Thank you.
We are professional cartoonists, and we are Legion of Superheroes experts.
Recording in progress.
Was that you?
Got that on tape.
What was that?
I don't usually like to burp real loud. It's rude. All right, it's a letters page for Legion of Superheroes 23. Great issue of comics, Legion 23.
One of David's personal favorites.
And the letters page is talking about another great one, issue 18.
Which we've covered.
Yeah, we did a video about it. Do you remember it? I looked back at the story because I had no recollection of it. Did you have to read it again?
I think isn't it the one that opens with Brainiac 5 crying because he realized Supergirl's dead or like she's dying on the cover?
No, that's a different one. Like the
okay,
18 has Infinite Man on the cover because Infinite Man is the baddie.
Yeah, but everybody in this letter column is whining about it. Like he's a cool character. I don't know what these people are talking about.
Well, the issue stunk. It was stupid. Well, let's just get into it.
Let's get into it.
Dale Coe, he's from England. He starts out and he says he's discovered who Censor Girl is. There's a big mystery who Censor Girl is since she joined the Legion back in issue 14, I think. Nobody knows who she is. She's this blonde lady with big shoulder pads and a Spider-Man mask. Who the hell is she?
Vaguely Supergirl-ish.
Yeah, she might have all the powers of Supergirl.
Blonde hair.
But this guy says he thinks that Censor Girl is PROTY. And for some reason, PROTY decided to go to disguise him. I don't know. PROTY is a him, right? Or probably today they would not assign a gender to PROTY.
It's non-binary.
So PROTY decided they would disguise themselves as a blonde human and join the Legion.
I don't know where the fans get these ideas. Like, a Protean disguising themselves as a Legionnaire, presumably spending years on the team. It's really silly. They would never use a plot like that.
I know what you're talking about. But in that case, PROTY, he what am I trying to say?
That I'm right and you're wrong. I think that's where you were going.
I guess.
He also points out some of the right, doesn't he, kind of not human rights, but Protean rights, correct?
Yeah, he's talking about, the PROTY might have joined the Legion to shine some light on the fact that Proteans are intelligent beings.
Right, and that both of these things sort of play in the next series.
I think they do to a small degree way into it, right?
Well, I think probably we haven't come to the issue yet, but we're going to start seeing like people protesting with signs, I think, saying Proteans or sentient life forms, or that does come into play in 5 years later, I'm pretty sure. I think they are like being finally like recognized as sentient beings in the 5 years later time.
Probably so. I mean, there's that part in issue 300 where Prote's like, look, I'm not a pet. I'm a photographer now.
Mm-hmm.
Get off on my case or whatever. I'm only doing this as a favor to you guys, even though you kept me as a pet for 20 years.
Instead of giving me my own name, named me Proty 2.
Did he even have a name? I think he might have named himself in that issue.
You think?
We read that, you and I, but it was 5 months ago.
I don't remember. Does he ever communicate with the Legionnaires, or is he kind of like Garfield, like thinking his own thoughts and nobody except maybe Saturn Girl?
He was talking to Saturn Girl in issue 300, but aside from that, I don't really know. I was just looking at the Substitute Heroes special, and like as a joke, there's a Proty who's acting as like the chorus or something. He's like got a lute, and he's singing, and he has this big mouth.
Right.
But I don't know if that's a thing between us, the readers, and Proty, or if he would actually do that in real life. I don't know if they have the ability to make vocalizations.
They must be able to when they're in human form, right?
Well, they're just in the shape of a human. They don't have the guts of a human, right? Or all the parts.
Oh, I guess you're right, because with Lightning Lad, spoilers, it's just his mind inside Lightning Lad's body.
Oh, is it? I thought it was a
so.
Proty shaped like Lightning Lad, but I have no idea.
Because he dies and we see him like fall over or whatever at the when Lightning Lad is resurrected.
Oh, yeah? Weird.
Maybe actually, and I had to remember this, but he was impersonating one of the Legionnaires and holding the bar, right? And then he like died and maybe like reverted to protoplasm.
That must be it. Yeah, he's pretending to be Saturn Girl. I think he knocked her out and took her place.
Right.
And then also in the issue when PROTY 2 is being hazed by the other super pets, one of his trials is he has to disguise himself as Superboy, and as Superboy I think he talks to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess he can speak to people, or speak when he becomes a person, but not as PROTY can he speak to people.
Unless he grows a big pair of lips.
Weird. Paul says that no, Sensor Girl is not PROTY.
What a killjoy.
Yeah, he says it's an interesting theory, very patronizing. In the next part of his letter, he's talking about Supergirl's death and the crisis.
Mm-hmm.
Well, but that's not really what I just read this afternoon. And I forgot everything. I read this every week for 3 weeks, and now I've forgotten it already.
This is the week we do it.
Uh-huh. He says that the idea that the Legion knew all about Supergirl's death and hence the crisis irked him to no end. It seemed to devalue the impact of the changes being made.
Was he referring to whatever happened to the Man of Tomorrow? Or because that alludes to that too.
No, I think he's referring to issue 16, where we see Brainiac 5 crying over Supergirl being dead.
Right.
Then he fast forwards to issue 18, and then he's saying that it's kind of okay. Like they sort of fixed whatever upset him about 16 with the events in 18.
I see.
But it is true that all this time, the Legion must have known that Supergirl was going to die at some point in the big crisis. But still, they accepted her in the team, and still
they're
dated
pretty
her
fast
stuff
and
like that.
loose about how time works. It's just whatever suits whatever issue they're writing. Because sometimes it is the more logical thing. Like if she dies in crisis, they would have known from the very beginning when they first met her that she was destined to die, and they just didn't say anything about it. But then sometimes time changes, kind of like the way it does in Back to the Future, where like if someone dies in 1986, it suddenly changes within the comic. Like that character fades away, or history changes mid-story.
Yeah, I think I prefer the first of those two theories.
You would. I like the second, because then you don't have to like come up with explanations for inconsistencies.
Well, I mean, I don't think you ever have to do that in a comic book anyway, but
Right.
I think it makes it kind of interesting that,
Yeah.
you know, for it to be like, well, yeah, Brainiac 5 knew all along that before she turns 20 or whatever, she was going to die.
Right.
And even when he was dating her or whatever, he knew she was dead.
Uh-huh. Won't have to put up with her much longer.
Yeah, this issue 16 where he is lamenting her death, like how often does he do that? And was he feeling that way when she was actually still alive? Because she could still come and join the team again, you know? She's not, you know, she might be dead in 1986, but she's alive in 1985, so she could still come and hang out with the team in the future if she wanted, you know?
One would think, but they never do that.
Yeah, they don't really do stuff like that.
They rarely run into the characters out of order. Even in the adventure comics where we see the adult Legion, it's Superman going to the future to see them.
Yeah.
A certain amount of that kind of makes sense. Like it'd be really confusing. You'd want to go visit your friend right after the last time he saw you, not before. I don't know. Like, I think it would make conversations complicated. Or maybe it's some kind of like you're risking a paradox. So if I go have this adventure with you before that other adventure we have, what if you die in the middle of it?
Well, you know they won't, because it's if you follow the storytelling that I believe, then
where
yeah,
everything's set in stone.
If you're here, you're alive. What else is there to it?
You don't believe in free will, do you?
Hell no.
I don't either.
Actually, maybe I do. I don't even know. I don't believe in fucking you fade away out of the photograph and that means you never existed. That's so stupid.
Oh, that was just a corny theatrical way of representing it for the viewer. But yeah, in Zero Hour, that's happening constantly in the comic. Characters are changing into different characters or disappearing altogether, changing in the present day.
That's right. And it's kind of a novelty in a thing like 0 Hour. But we shouldn't expect that that's happening all the time, I don't think.
Right. Well,
or to have that be the explanation when somebody's like, hey, last issue was Starboy, but in this issue, for some reason, Starboy, his role has been replaced with Karate Kid. What's the deal? And the editor's just like, well, something in history must have changed. Oops.
I think the reason why I prefer the second option kind of goes back to, there was an episode of Doctor Who where, which is all about time travel. And the companion asks, like, why are we even worrying about this situation? It's back in time. They're like, we know the Earth will be fine by the time you get to 2020 or whatever, because that's where I'm from. The doctor mentions no time is constantly shifting. It's like, it's not set in stone. If we don't stop this now, you'll just cease to exist. Now, maybe that makes less sense for a story that keeps jeopardy in it. By your theory, no one ever has to worry. We know the Legion's going to be okay because Superboy's with them, and we know he becomes Superman. So there would never be any jeopardy in any of the stories.
Yeah, I mean, I guess using Superboy is maybe a bad example, but I guess I can kind of see what you're getting
No,
at.
he is like in every single Legion story for the first 20 years.
Well, but I mean, he's such a big star that they would never do something where, like,
right.
oh,
Well,
all
that
of a
would be
sudden,
true anyway.
There was no Krypton in the universe now.
Right.
So there's no Superboy. Anyway, you're right. You win. It should be like that where people disappear.
At the least, you don't want the characters to become like, you don't want the jeopardy to disappear. And people are like, why am I even reading this? I know they're going to live. But I guess if you really know comics well enough, you know they're not all going to die anyway.
Right. We do that
So
in
maybe I'm wrong.
everything we read and watch on TV and stuff, like,
Right.
you know that Tom Cruise is not going to die in this, in Mission Impossible 3,
That's too bad.
Maybe he died in the newest one. I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, one can hope.
Actually, I don't think he did because I think it's actually going to be 3 movies or something moronic like that to close out the series.
5.1, 5.2, 5.3. I think they're past 5.
I think they're actually on 6.
8 or something like that. Yeah.
6 or 7. Anyway, and Daleco feels like they redeemed themselves in issue 18 for the sins of issue 16 by whatever, I guess just making what he feels is a stronger crisis tie-in issue in the Legion.
Okay.
By showing how the crisis shit can tie into the 30th century. To me, it's still stupid, but to him it worked. But I guess there is a part of issue 18 where the Legionnaires, like, they actually show up in the crisis series, right? Doing stuff. And they go back, they manage to make it back to the 30th century, but they don't
maybe
remember.
only 2 of them, right? Definitely Wildfire and Dawnstar. Was Brainiac 5 one of them?
Yeah, because he's talking about how he can't remember stuff, and I think he must have been in it. And some of them are there with Kid Psycho, who dies, the one Legionnaire who dies in the crisis.
Oh, right. I know there was sort of like almost a team that was kind of a modge podge of all. Like they grabbed a couple characters from every book, and Dawnstar and Wildfire are part of that, and I think it's just the 2 of them, but the other guys may show up elsewhere.
Yeah, I think there's some kind of shit like that.
Mm-hmm.
But somehow in the future, back in the future, after they fought the Anti-Monitor in the Crisis on the Infinite Earths, they have memory lapses, he says. And he wonders if Brainiac 5 is going to forget about Supergirl altogether.
See, that doesn't make sense either. That's like the fading photograph in a way. Why wouldn't they just never know them in the first place? Or why would it happen gradually?
A fading memory to me sounds more reasonable than a fading photograph.
Okay, for sure.
And also the fading photograph where Michael J. Fox can look at the Polaroid and part of his brother is there, but his head has started to fade away.
So he grew up with there's a headless version of him walking around.
But meaning that
I just
some
want
of
to
the
reiterate,
details
I am
that
not defending the photograph. I'm not defending the photograph.
You brought it up. I wouldn't even thought of it.
Bastard.
Oh, but he likes the appearance of Infinite Man
Mm-hmm.
In this issue.
It's also notable, he reminds me that White Witch is the one who took him out.
Yeah.
And she's the one who had a cow about them killing him and left the team.
Do you think White Witch is maybe the dumbest Legionnaire?
Oh,
Is that why she likes Block? Is because they're the 2 dumbest Legionnaires?
The list is long.
Yeah.
Timberwolf is definitely in the running. Depending on how you define intelligence, I would say Brainiac 5 is on that list. He's book smart, but...
Right. But the plot of issue 18, I think, is something like all the upheaval of the time stream or of just like reality shifting during the Crisis on Infinite Earths miniseries, maxi series. It somehow unleashes the Infinite Man who's been zigzagging through the past and the future and the present.
Is he zigzagging or is he just like going through a loop?
Yeah, he might be going in a loop. but
infinite
uncontrollably, and he can't stop.
Right.
But then he gets released, kind of as if it's a prison, and then he just kind of does the same shenanigans that he did in his other appearance,
bringing back like warriors from different times.
And then they beat him. Legionnaires beat him with White Witch. She casts a spell of, I don't know what, restores him back to the mindless human form of Jackson Rugarth. He used to have a mind as human. Now he's just a vegetative state. Human dude again, no more Infinite Man.
So she's the one who killed him in a way.
Right. He was a thriving organism, however malevolent.
But he could think, and he could speak, and
yeah.
After what she did, he's brain dead. But she's like, he's still breathing, so he's still alive. Maybe that's why
he has a heartbeat. He's alive.
That's why she was protesting so much. Because, I mean, it kind of makes sense. Like, they're saying, well, it doesn't matter. He's brain dead. And she's like, no. He's still alive. I didn't do anything to him. I just knocked him out. Like, he was still alive. You're the guys who killed him. But they're like saying, well, no, he was already dead ever since you cast that spell. So it's on her hands.
I guess that's what you're saying. That's why she's so butthurt, is because in a way, like out the other side of their mouth, they're kind of blaming her for doing this.
Right. Their excuse implicates her in his death.
Yeah, but her excuse, her reasoning for not using him as a weapon to kill the Time Trapper in issue 50 is that you guys think that life is in the brain. I feel like, and I know because I'm a mage, that the soul and the spirit is something else, and his body's alive, so he must still have it. He must be holding on to it, or some baloney like that.
White Witch was one of those people protesting Terry Schiavo's getting unplugged.
Yep.
One of those.
Terry Schiavo Unplugged. You remember that MTV special?
That was a classic.
Layla.
Did you just come
got me on my knees?
We're like 20 or 30 years late, but that would have been a great mean, like fake album cover.
SNL sketch.
Yeah.
Like MTV executives like burst into her hospital room, try and get her to sign a contract. Gross.
Yeah. Well, anyway, even though they dismiss this guy's theories, they do kind of come into play later. So who knows? Maybe Keith or Tom and Mary read this letter.
Yeah, they must have, huh? It does kind of line up. I'm sure Keith did not read this letter. He doesn't seem like a guy who's reading the letters pages.
I'm not a big reader.
He's too busy like writing 7 comic books this month. Jeff Jackson, Port Orange, Florida. Oh, the title of issue 18 is Has Anyone Noticed a Crisis Going On? That's the title of that story.
It must be a play on like a song title or something, right? That we don't know.
But yeah, it could be some 80s song. It doesn't sound like I know all the 80s songs, but
right.
I don't know. I just thought it was kind of a silly title, kind of a mouthful.
Right, it is.
Jeff Jackson liked it, and he hopes it was the last such Crisis tie-in. Oh, he says it's the best Crisis tie-in, but he hopes the last Legion tie-in. I don't think there's going to be an end to the every other title tying into it.
It was a very weird crossover because usually these big events are like 4 issues, like Legends or 0 Hour or whatever. And if they cross into the other books, it's all like within 1 or 2 months consecutive. But this thing went on and on and on. It was like a year long. So these books, I think the books were all probably obligated to interact with it to some extent, but they'd go like 3 or 4 months and then do a Crisis, tie-in, and then they kind of forget about it for 4 or 5 months, and then they do another one because it was so
like out
long.
Of the blue, like Blue Devil is fighting energy walls, then everything's back to normal for a couple issues, and then they're back.
Right.
Again. I think this guy who actually calls out the Blue Devil. No, it's the next letter talking about Blue Devil.
They want him on the team.
He says, I feel that given time, Greg LaRocque, you're going to love this.
Oh,
Greg LaRocque will grow into the role of Legion artist just as Keith Giffen and Steve Lytle did before him. I mean, he does. He does a lot of issues of Legion. But is he as fondly remembered as, like, Lytle? He did, I don't know, 10 issues? He didn't do very much.
No. LaRocque has a pretty long run. I don't know. How long is Keith's run? I mean, Keith, his first run was pretty long, I guess.
Yeah, he did like 285 to 313, and then 5 more on top of that. What is that?
I'm sure if we added them all up, it'd be a big stack. But
It's
I
about
don't
30,
really-
35 issues. Or
I
something
feel like
like
he's
that.
kind of omnipresent in the Legion for decades, but it doesn't seem like he drew all that many issues. Like maybe he did half of the ones that he was somehow involved in. Like a lot of them, he just did the plots or the breakdowns.
I think so. I think maybe
Certainly
up to
by
right
5 years later, there's a lot of fill-ins, and he's only there the first 30 issues.
39. Yeah, I think up to this point of this letters page, he had done the 285 to 313.
Mhm.
The first 5 of this title. He'd done 12 breakdown jobs on Tales of the Legion. He'd done Legionnaires 3 and
Breakdowns, right?
annuals. Yeah.
Right. I guess I wasn't really counting the breakdowns. With the
Right,
breakdowns,
right.
of course.
Yeah, this
Of
guy's
course.
talking about him as an artist. So yeah, it wasn't as many. It was 30 some.
Right.
So yeah, maybe LaRock, but by the time of 5 years later, LaRock
Yeah.
might have drawn more Legion comics than Keith Giffen. Well, Keith
Up
did it
until then,
like the
maybe.
last year of this title too.
Yeah, that's true.
They were neck and neck for a period. But I don't know that anybody fondly remembers him. Maybe they do. Maybe somebody's like Greg LaRock was the best they ever had.
I saw some like Spider-Man comics he did long before this, and they look pretty good. And like I've said before, I like his Flash.
Yeah, I mean, what you always say is that you think it's the Baxter paper doesn't do him any favors, and maybe you're
Yeah.
right. Maybe it makes his panels look empty.
I think but I think that's part of it too. Like maybe some of it is on Levitz because he's kind of coasting during the LaRock days. So there's not a lot going on. So there is a lot of empty space that LaRock is not particularly suited to fill.
Yeah,
Like if he was working in a 9-panel grid, like maybe his stuff would look a lot better.
maybe. But see, there's those couple of pages, like you see, like he does like these ones that are like montage types of pages
Yeah.
with like a big figure and
Mhm.
like you're supposed to read it a different way. Like it seems like
Mhm.
that's what he really wants. And maybe if a certain type of script he could do something with that. But yeah, the Levitz ones don't seem like they were that way. I haven't read enough of his Flash comics to know what he was doing on that. Like if you gave him like a Marvel
I
Method
feel like
type
it was
of book.
denser storytelling for sure.
Yeah.
Like more was going on in the Wade Flash issues than the Levitz issues.
Yeah, I don't know. Something about the LaRock's tenure makes him not memorable, unfortunately.
I will say, I think like the first pages he does, like the big panel title page, whatever, look good most of the time. They're usually like a close up of the face or something, but looks like he puts a lot of work into those pages at least.
Yeah, I mean, I think dude can draw, but sometimes
I think
it's
he's
not.
dead.
Think so?
Dude could
I
draw.
don't know if he is.
You think he's still alive?
I bet he
LaRock,
is.
if you're alive out there, comment down below. Let us know.
Subscribe. I think he's probably alive and old, but I don't know.
Son of a bitch, he is.
I didn't mean to speak of him in past tense as if he was no longer with us. I just meant to say that in these active years of his, he was good. He's probably still great. He's probably better now than ever. But Jeff Jackson goes on to say the big disappointment of the issue was the Infinite Man. Not only did he do the same tricks as he did in Legion number 233, but someone of his infinite power was fairly easily defeated by the Legionnaires. That's true. It was easy defeat. Dumb issue. This guy says, I hope we've seen the last of him. Infinite Man is a failure as a villain. Oh, this part's good, though. In the request department. It's about time Ultra Boy and Phantom Girl got married. And...
Mhm.
Wildfire should have a real body, and it's about time for some new villains.
We want him to have a real body and his powers too.
Yeah, he's kind of dreaming,
Ridiculous.
but yeah, he almost sounds like one of these guys who just wants, like, if you gave Wildfire a real body and his powers, what do you have? Just it's so boring, Like the whole thing about Wildfire is he's not, doesn't have a body. He's lame if he just is a fire guy,
There's a breed of Superman fan I see a lot of online who think he should be the most powerful, but also never make any mistakes. Like should never be conflicted, never have any flaws.
Right. I wonder what they expect him to do. Just just do everything.
And then they wonder why people don't want to write it or read it.
Let's just see some stories about a guy who succeeds all the time, who's perfect.
Right.
Everybody likes him. He never has any problems. Well, that's what he wants out of Wildfire. And then he wants Phantom Girl and Ultra Boy to be married because everybody who's dating really ought to eventually be married. That's the culmination of a relationship.
As we know from the last Super Talk, they got married in Adventure Comics, right? in between
Supposedly,
issues.
they might have gotten married back in those
Yeah.
days.
I like that idea. It kind of makes sense. Like you're gonna, if you have a bunch of kids, there'll be at least one pairing that's gonna be dumb enough to get married when they're young, and it's against the rules. So they're like eloping and not telling anybody.
Oh, that's why they wouldn't tell anybody, huh? I guess that's logical.
Right.
Yeah, that'd actually be a good story that they have to. They're keeping that dark secret or whatever.
Right.
And like everybody's like, Ultra Boy, why are you always coming out of Phantom Girl's bedroom at 11:30? It's like, well,
I need you to borrow something.
Yeah, she uses the same brand of toothpaste as me, so.
Mm-hmm.
But see, like a dude like this, he's like, if he had known that Phantom Girl and Ultra Boy were already married, his request would be like, well, they should have kids. How come they don't
Right.
have kids yet after all these years of marriage?
The kids should have both of their powers, be able to use them both well.
Oh,
you
like
know?
Ultra Boy Jr. would have a whole fourth power
Right.
of
Right.
invisibility or whatever her power is, phase
Right.
ability.
They should have all the powers.
Yeah.
No downsides.
They actually did that in the Abnett and Lanning version. They had
They
a kid
did?
together, and they're trying to raise this baby who will spontaneously like fall through the floor and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Stephen DeStefano drew a whole issue of it, of like
Really?
like the Popeye cartoon where Olive Oil is like sleepwalking and goes on the construction site like that. It's like a Legion of Superheroes version kind of like that, but it's not drawn like Popeye style. It's drawn a little bit more superhero style.
I'm gonna have to look for that.
It's kind of neat, kind of out of the blue that they had him draw that.
It's an odd pairing.
But I don't know. I liked it. I liked him a lot even back then. Read his comic.
Yeah, he's good.
The best. And Paul responds, I guess, speaking of new villains, as this guy's requesting, hey, we got a new Fatal Five coming out. The oldest team of bad guys in Legion history, we got them coming back, but they're new. So he's kind of having it both ways. Kind of stupid.
Yeah, we'll see how well that works. It's like the new monkeys.
Oh, they're so lame, the new Fatal Five. Give me a break.
Yeah, I don't remember anything about any of them.
No, I think one of them's like an ice person, and one was probably a fire person.
Right.
And then it's still Persuader.
Right.
Persuader is like the lame dude from like when they reboot a TV series, but nobody else will come back. The Persuader is the one dude who will come back and just
He's got nothing better
tread
to do.
water. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a pretty standard. He's the dumb oaf villain.
Yeah.
The Beast Man to Evil Lynn.
Oh yeah. Okay.
That's a Masters of the Universe reference.
Yeah, it took me a second. Evil Lynn.
Evil Lynn.
In this case, Evil Lynn would be
Emerald Empress.
Emerald Empress. Yeah, like that was like the green lady.
Right.
Gary Harris, Fremont, California. Dear Paul, I'm writing you personally because as a devoted fan of the Legion and LSH magazine, I'm greatly disappointed that just one issue of this title was a Crisis crossover.
Yeah, they should have done it for 12 issues.
I know, he wants more Crisis crossovers.
Mm-hmm.
I guess because he liked 18 so much. It was such a slap together piece of junk, in my opinion, but this guy's like, no. But he says something weird here, which, since it's not 1985 anymore, I don't quite know what he's talking about. He says, issue 18 was an excuse of sorts for not portraying the Legion in the same manner as was done in Infinity Incorporated, All-Star Squadron, and Blue Devil. I don't know what he's talking about. Like, what did they do with those three titles in Crisis that Legion should have done the opposite of?
This is a complete guess. I've done no research on this. It might just be Dawnstar and Wildfire, showing up with that band of characters and complaining that the Legion issue doesn't have anything to do with that.
Oh, okay.
The stories that are happening to the Legion within their book are happening in the future. They're not like following the story and the Legion characters that are actually in the proper Crisis books.
Yeah. You know what I'm thinking, though? Infinity Incorporated it's a team of the children of the 40s superheroes. And then All-Star Squadron is the title that's actually the 40s superheroes. And then Blue Devil, I don't really know. All I remember is there's a Blue Devil Crisis cover where it's like, it has the Blue Devil we know, and then like that dude, like an alternate dimension version of him, like meeting each other on the cover. And so I wonder if there's some kind of, maybe they do, they tie in these characters a little bit tighter to Crisis. These guys who are from the 40s and are affected by Earth 2 crapola. maybe Blue Devil meets the Earth 2 Blue Devil or something like that. So maybe that's kind of what he's talking about. Like he doesn't want the Legion to meet the Earth 2 Legion and have problems, but he does want more Legion crossover interaction with Crisis. Does that make sense?
I guess. There probably is an Earth 2 Legion nowadays, didn't they? Maybe they designated like the Archie Legion, or one of the ones they decided isn't the real Legion. Didn't they do that already? Like,
I think they made one of them
the
Earth Prime Legion or something like that.
Okay, Blue Devil Annual 1, Mordru shows up during the period of Crisis. Green Lantern 194, Dawnstar shows up. Infinity Incorporated. Cameo appearances by Block, Brainiac 5, Bouncing Boy, Colossal Boy, Lightning Lad. But it says cameo, so like it was probably like one panel. So All-Star Squadron 53, it's cameos of Brainiac 5, Colossal Boy, Mon-El, Supergirl, and Ultra Boy.
Maybe he's trying to say that issue 18 was an excuse for not portraying the Legion in the same manner that they were portrayed in these other comics as like little one-panel walk-ons.
Oh, right.
But I still don't quite know what he's getting at.
Gary, if you're watching this, please comment.
Yeah, tell us
below
what you're thinking about. And maybe in your next letters, use some more pronouns and explain what you're trying to say. But he thinks there should have been several issues of Legion tying into Crisis, such as Mon-El and Element Lad evacuating Britain. So maybe that's something that was like hinted at or shown in one panel in Crisis. That's like what you said, huh? That they should expand the walk-on bits from Crisis into entire issues in the comic. So maybe that's what they did in Infinity Incorporated, etc.
Right. Well, I know you didn't love the issues with time changing, but I thought that was a more interesting thing to do than to have them with all the other 20th century superheroes fighting like a big Andy monitor or something. Like, I like the idea that time is changing around them and they're sort of aware of it and they're forgetting things. And
it does seem like a bit more of a, like that seems like what you can bite off and chew in like a one issue of a crossover that isn't just like a recap of what's going on in the big maxi series that kind of builds on it. I still don't think 18 was a good issue, but yeah, something where they're doing that, like, oh, they're trying to escape the energy walls, trying to fight the Anti-Monitor, trying to shake hands with Superman or whatever. Like, come on, I don't care. Does he like issue 18? Maybe this is a pan of issue 18. Issue 18 seems to be saying that Crisis happens, so what? No panic in the 30th century when Antimatter appeared near Earth. Crisis is undoubtedly the greatest story in DC history where everybody is involved and many crossovers were involved, but for some reason the Legion was shortchanged. If you were not the Legion's writer, but just a fan, Paul, would you not have been disappointed? So yeah, he wanted more out of, I don't know. Like, what does he expect? This is a monthly comic book title. Nobody had a whole series of crossovers. Maybe they did 2 max over the course of whatever it was, 13 months.
How would that even work? I mean, whatever's happening with the antimatter probably isn't happening by the time you get to their time. He wants the team to go back in time and fight the Anti-Monitor, I guess.
I guess that's what he wants.
The way Levitz writes the book, it's not... The Legion, they're not the only... The whole 30th century is the character. Like, he doesn't just follow the Legionnaires, he follows the science police, he cuts over to all kinds of things going on in that universe. So it makes sense that he'd want to stay there and show how Crisis is affecting that time, not go have them fighting alongside Green Lantern and Firestorm.
Right. Well, and also you only have one issue to to explain how. I mean, I guess it happens. Like, it makes the issues even worse when they have to be like figure out how to go back in time on page 1. By page 2, they have to find all the other heroes and meet them, and by page 3, they have to battle the bad guy, and et cetera, et cetera. It's like, well, now it's this dense like ABC.
It's a huge clusterfuck too, because now you have other people writing your characters, and you have to match up what's happening in your book with what's happening in the main book. I'm sure it was like more or less mandated, and he had to do X amount of Crisis-related stories. So he's like, you can have these 2 or 3 characters, send them back to your time, and they can show up in the Crisis books and the other stuff. But I'm going to do everything in the 30th century so I can... Because even though it's a Crisis crossover, it's still furthering his plots that he was telling at that time.
In the Legion magazine, they don't actually show anybody going back in time to fight in the Crisis. It just happens. I'm just supposed to take for granted
it was kind of like the Beyond. You probably never read Secret Wars, but Beyonder like yanked everybody. They all like teleported onto another planet.
Uh-huh.
What Jim Shooter, who wrote that, smartly worked out was like, even though that was also 12 issues long, it at the end they all get returned back to the moment they were yanked. So they disappear on the last panel of one issue, and the very next issue they're back. You know what I mean? So it doesn't interfere with their books.
Right. If I didn't read that issue, it wouldn't matter.
Right.
They must explain in the Crisis title how any Legionnaires might have gotten involved in it, because I don't think Paul Levitz explains it in the monthly magazine that I remember. We haven't been reading these in order. I don't know.
My Crisis collection.
I've been seeing, like, I look at Hamilton books, you know, when they have their cheapy stuff come out, and they have, I guess they have collections of those crossovers. Yeah. And there's like 4 big books of that or more. Yeah. Of like the Crisis Companion or something. Do you have those?
I do not. That's too much for me.
Yeah, bridge.
Most of it is like Roy Thomas, like All-Star Squadron is very, like maybe every issue of that tied into Crisis. So, because some of those big omnibuses or whatever they are, they're nothing but All-Star Squadron.
Jeez, weird. I had an issue of that when I was a kid. Like it was like, I'm just trying to figure out which ones to buy, you know, when I first started getting into comics, and I bought an issue of All-Star Squadron. And it made no sense to me. Yeah, but as a kid, like not knowing the Crisis or Earth 1 and 2 and shit, it made no sense to me. But like it was like a big deal that Batman and Superman were gone and nobody ever heard of them, and instead there's Uncle Sam or something. What is this?
Oh, you had one of the Crisis issues.
It must have been, or like maybe immediately after it, because I think I started comics like right after it ended. So it was kind of weird and made no sense to a new reader. Plus, it was in the 40s or something. Weird comics. Gary Harris wants in the vein of Legionnaires 3, Legion maxi series on untold stories of the Legion.
Didn't we do this? Maybe we just talked about it. Huh?
No, I think in the last letters page or in, I was thinking about this. Somebody wanted to see stories about all those times when Superman and Mon-El were gone on a special mission.
Oh, right.
Just because the writer needed them out of the way.
Going to fight a space fungus outbreak.
Right. So Gary wants, number 1, Crisis with all the details of the Legion's participation. Like all that, turn that single panel with Legionnaires into a whole comic book. As many times as it takes to tell all those stories.
Yeah.
Number 2, the mission of 17 Legionnaires to Dimension QK51 while Pharaoh Lad was being killed by the Sun Eater. So that's one of those where, Superboy and Mon-El were there, weren't they? Maybe Mon-El was gone during that death of Pharaoh Lad. But 17 Legionnaires, all the Legionnaires were gone practically, except for a couple during the Sun Eater battle, huh?
Yeah, I mean, they had to write out, they must have written Mon-El out, right? Because
I think
they had to figure out a way to knock Superboy out so that otherwise he would have just taken on the Sun Eater himself, right?
Yeah, that's actually in the comic. Superboy tries, but somehow
Pharaoh
he doesn't.
Punches him out or something. Somehow.
Yeah, puts kryptonite in his undershorts or something. Or the first battle the Legion had with Mordru, where Mon-El and Superboy captured him in a steel vault. People have been asking for that story for a long time. I don't really care. It's kind of an interesting idea.
I think it would be cool, but I don't know that it could be cooler than what you imagine it would be. Like, it'd probably be a letdown. It wouldn't live up to that.
Yeah. And that first Mordru story where they detail his whole history and stuff, that's pretty cool, you know?
Yeah.
That's a just fine introduction. You don't need to go backwards, I guess.
It's really, probably should have mentioned this when we were covering it, but it was kind of clever because this kid comes in and just starts writing this book and adding all these new characters, but he adds a lot of weight to Mordru by alluding that he'd been there for a while. Like, this is an old adversary of theirs, not some brand new guy.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, I've seen a lot of people, maybe in letters pages or whatever, online fan shit from a long time ago, where they're like, I searched and searched for that first time they fought Mordru and never found it.
Right.
I wasn't until 20 years later that I found out there no such thing existed. So I guess it is pretty compelling idea. And then the 4th thing that he wants to see in this Untold Legion maxi series, the mission to the past of Mon-El, Superboy, and Ultra Boy, while the others were captured by the Super Stalag of space. He just wants to know what those 3 guys were doing when everybody else was in jail.
Right. All the stories where they conveniently write out the most powerful characters.
Yeah. Like they Maybe they should do a maxi series where it's like a buddy comedy thing with Ultra Boy, Superboy, and Mon-El doing missions back in the past as whoever Bob Cobb and I don't know. Ultra Boy must have had a secret identity for the past too, because he was back there a couple of times.
He's the Fonz.
Yeah. I really feel many of the readers would like to see these gaps closed. Wouldn't you, if you were just a fan and not the writer? I don't know. I think I'm not the writer, but I think I wouldn't care.
We should point out that all these stories he's talking about are at least 20 years old at the time of this letter. Probably no one remembers or cares.
I think they might remember them, but they also don't care. They've accepted that.
Right.
And they also know. They know that the reason that Superboy wasn't there is because he could have saved the day, and so they just didn't put him in the comic.
Right.
I think this guy's kind of a nut, kind of one of those people who just wants to... I say this all the time. He wants to know the story of every one of those creatures in the Star Wars cantina and read a whole novel about it. Otherwise, the world they've dropped the ball and forgotten something.
Yeah, the Super Stalag of Space would be a very short story if those three were in prison with them.
What does Paul say? Oh, yeah. Paul kind of elaborates on his philosophy of his career, I guess. He says, to be perfectly honest, Gary, one of the patterns in my writing career has been seeking out assignments that had little to do with mainstream continuity like the Legion is, and the Justice Society, when he wrote that. Or even the couple of sword and sorcery series I created, Stalker and Dragon Sword. Never heard of Dragon Sword. He says they're exhausting. Linking continuity is exhausting for writers. One issue was all I had the strength for. And then he asked the readers whether they would like to read more of the missing lost episodes of the Honeymooners. Next letter from Jay Walsh of Fort Lauderdale, Florida. He's taking issue with Robert Rundle's issue that was published in issue 18.
His letter, yeah. It's a letter feud. It's like Twitter before Twitter.
Without the 140 character limit.
Right.
I guess this is Twitter blue check x.com check mark $8.99 a month Twitter now.
I used to wonder, I'm sure this has happened, but you hear these stories of people, this is like long before the internet, like Thomas Jefferson, these guys, spending years writing letters to one another. Do you think there were like decades long, like flame wars between like people like writing with quill, like these elaborate insults at one another?
Back and forth, yeah, for 40 years.
Right.
Thomas Jefferson and Ben Franklin doing that.
Yeah.
And they probably live in the same town. They could have got it nailed down.
Right.
Hammered it out, buried the hatchet in one day.
Put the wax seal on it, get some boy to take it by horse.
Yeah, Thomas Jefferson would have sent one of his slaves.
Dear Ben, go fuck yourself.
I don't think Ben Franklin had slaves, did he? He was actually a normal, good person.
I don't know if he was normal. I mean, he was like putting keys on kites and getting electrocuted. And
I think Ben Franklin was like the Bernie Sanders of our nation's forefathers.
That's based on absolutely nothing. You don't know any of the specifics of his politics. Like, I wonder if there was kind of a more socialist guy among them.
Maybe. I mean, Franklin wasn't like a general, right?
I don't know what the fuck he was. I should know. Was he like a diplomat, probably?
I think he was.
He spent a lot of time having to go to France.
That was Thomas Jefferson was always in France.
Oh, okay.
Right?
No, he invented some stuff.
Electricity.
He invented electricity, yeah.
Anyway, I guess Rundle, 3 months ago, said Karate Kid was an ill-conceived, shitty, no-good character because he doesn't have superpowers. All he has is this karate martial arts stuff. Walsh says, you're kidding me.
I'm with this guy. I'm with this letter writer.
Yeah, I think Rundle said Karate Kid did not deserve Legion membership. Walsh says that he saved a whole planet with one punch. However, that was done.
I keep saying that's one of the issues we have to cover. I think that's the one where Gimbor the Chainsman creates this huge chain energy shield around the Earth, and it's like ginormous, and he's out in space, and he just karate chops it, saves the world.
That rules. Awesome. Yeah, that guy deserves whatever. He should be on the Avengers even with it.
Yeah,
karate chop like that.
Batman doesn't have any powers, dumbass. Maybe we should kick him off the Justice League.
Right, and Green Arrow? He doesn't belong in the Justice League with his stupid boxing glove arrow. How lame.
Right.
So yeah, he's defending the existence of Karate Kid, but also doesn't want a replacement Karate Kid 2. He wants he wants the original Karate Kid to rest in peace. Rest in pieces, Karate Kid. He's very positive about issue 18. He hopes we haven't seen the last of the Infinite Man. There's a lot of details in the story that he liked. A lot of just like side details. Dr. Jimmel treating Shadowlass, and last but not least, seeing Kid Psycho, which I don't think anybody'd seen Kid Psycho since probably his first appearance or something.
The frost from Polar Boy's breath. I wonder, is this where that started? Seems like that's stuck around. That's been become one of his signature.
Yeah, I remember
things.
Keith Giffen doing it a lot. But evidently it was created by Greg LaRocque. That's maybe Greg LaRocque's biggest contribution to the canon here.
That was a good one, Greg.
And he says, finally, let's see the rest of the Legion more in Supergirl and not just Brainiac 5.
I don't know.
Their mourning period seems way too short.
I never get it. I feel like Supergirl's involvement with the Legion was not that extensive, except in fans' imaginations, where they have them shipping or whatever it's called.
Yeah, I mean, they must have showed up in a handful of Supergirl adventures, right?
That's what I've seen. Yeah. Almost none. Yeah, it's funny. He supposedly pines for Brainiac 5, but I don't think he ever comes up. I don't think he's ever shown up in an issue of Supergirl.
Weird.
I mean, I'm sure he has in the last 20 years.
But I mean, I think they were in some Supergirl comics, right?
Maybe. I've got that Legion publication guide thing that I always look at.
Okay.
That's where I read to you the thing about Blue Beetle. Not Blue Beetle.
Blue Devil.
Blue Devil. I don't think I've ever seen any Supergirl issues on this list.
Let me see.
They hardly show up in Superboy after the 80s.
Well, yes, Supergirl didn't even have her own title, did she? She was in,
she was in Venture Comics and then Super Team Family.
Right, but
she had a couple books in the 80s.
Yeah, but I'm talking in the Silver Age. She was in Superman, and then when she got her own feature, that was in Action Comics probably, right?
Yeah, I think so.
I'm trying to look at my Legion handbook here. But
I mean, you know what? They did appear a couple of times. And frankly, those are the only times we see her in the Legion in the early days is like when they show up in a couple of her stories where she tries to join the team or they want her to join the team.
Uh-huh.
Like, I think those happened in Action Comics in her backup feature, not in the Adventure Comics.
Right. Action Comics 267, Supergirl meets the Legion of Superheroes.
Mm-hmm.
276, Supergirl's 3 Supergirlfriends. That's when she joins. That's Action 276. Right.
It's when a shit ton of the members first show up.
287, Supergirl's Greatest Challenge featuring Legion of Superheroes.
Mm-hmm.
288, The Man Who Made Supergirl Cry. That is a Mon-El cameo.
Oh, yeah. Not counting the cameos.
Yeah. I think that's the extent of Supergirl's involvement, kind of, is cameos in Supergirl comics, huh?
Mm-hmm.
But like, you just have to read between the lines, you know. Like if she's like, "Hey, Phantom Girl, welcome to the whatever, the Galesburg Orphanage where I live," or wherever.
Mm-hmm.
You must, with that kind of familiarity, you have to accept that she's part of the team and knows all of them.
Was she even in the wedding of Lightning Lad?
I don't know. Probably not.
She wasn't even invited.
But he's like, how come they don't mourn the death of Supergirl? But she is a member of the team, right?
Well, I mean, do you mourn the death of Ben Franklin?
Yeah, every year on Ben Franklin Day.
I mean, she's been dead their entire lives. Like,
yeah, but she was on a team and fought alongside him.
Yeah.
But then I think he's also implying that they didn't really do much to mourn Karate Kid either when he got killed.
Yeah. I guess that's happening in between issues, right? We're not going to spin an issue with them all crying in bed.
Yeah, pretty boring issues.
Fucking comic book, man.
It's about action.
Action.
Like the action of Colossal Boy and Yira going shopping. Or shit like that. Meeting Colossal Boy's parents for the umpteenth time.
Right.
The last paragraph of Jay Walsh's letter says, "Does anyone else out there miss Princess Projectra? I never thought I would, but I do." And I think they must have left that part in, right? It's like, let's keep
Right.
her up in the minds of the readership.
Yeah, I guess they probably know by now who it is, right? The writers. So he made some comment like someone even guessed the right answer.
Yeah, he says a handful of people have guessed who Censor Girl is and why Censor Girl is. Greg Treadwell, Chapel Hill, North Carolina. The quality of the Legion of Superheroes has diminished greatly in the past few Baxter issues. Agreed. This was caused by the admission of one of the new heroes. Oh, that's not what caused
I
it.
don't know about that.
It's your treatment of Polar Boy that has prompted me, one who has never written a letter to a comic book magazine, to end his silence. Very dramatic end to his silence. He doesn't like that. They never took Polar Boy seriously when he was in the Substitute Heroes. Then there was that horrible joke of a special, Legion of Substitute Heroes special,
Right.
where Polar Boy disbanded the team, and then he joined the Legion. They admitted him to the Legion, but now they're still not taking him seriously. He's not in the issues.
Right. He's getting at this point he's getting the Tyrock treatment. Like he's on monitor duty a lot and stuff.
Yeah.
Which sucks, but I don't see how that could ruin a whole comic because he's hardly in it.
Right.
All I gotta say, if he doesn't like that, wait till issue 51, right? Which has Polar Boy on the cover accusing
Brainiac 5.
Yeah, they turn him into kind of an asshole for a little while.
Yeah, but you know what? He's kind of an asshole, like in the same way that this Greg guy is.
Oh, maybe.
He's just
He was
uptight.
inspired by this.
Almost, yeah. Like he becomes this uptight letter of the law Legion Constitution guy.
Right.
And you can't help but take him seriously because he's up in your butt trying to get you fired and stuff.
Right.
He's a joke no more. He's ended his silence, Polar Boy.
Mm-hmm.
But I like this part in his letter. He's like, if I had my way, Polar Boy would either become a serious hero or he would die a hero's death in the crisis. Either way, I'll continue to buy both of your magazines. Thank you. Wish they would have fucking killed Polar Boy in the crisis instead of Kid Psycho. Put a little bit of stakes in this comic book.
Oh, I love Polar Boy.
Yeah, he's cool. Even whatever character, like he's a total hero when he was in the Substitutes. Even though nobody knew it, it wasn't like they treated him as a joke. He was a hero, right? He was an undersung hero. The whole team was. Just like a lot of kids in school feel that they do good stuff and they don't get any credit for it, but they're doing the right thing, so they keep doing good stuff, right?
Right. I mean, they kind of play him a little bit as the villain. Not villain's too strong a word. As the asshole stickler for the rules in the later end of this volume. But he isn't really relegated to being a joke again until 5 years later.
Totally.
But I think that must be Giffen. I wonder if like Giffen and Tom and Mary are at cross purposes because in the first issue and in some of those text pieces, he seems very heroic. Like he's like the last guy to give up on the team, and like he's considered like a terrorist or something in the first issue. Like because he's still out there trying to like save the day.
Well, yeah, he's in jail, and it's like they've locked him up and thrown away the key because he's such a threat, I guess, to the government or something.
Right. He's like a one-man legion of superheroes.
Yeah, we'll have to talk about that when we get to those issues. But yeah, it does seem like they had sort of a trajectory for him, but then he got sidelined into nothingness altogether.
Right.
Which is too bad because I kind of liked the foreshadowing that they had
in
in those first couple issues.
We mentioned when we were covering issue 1, I think even you're the guy who said like it would have made more sense for it to be him, not Rock, being the heart of the Legion or whatever.
Right. Yeah, especially the way they characterize him in those text pages.
Right.
Yeah. And also, didn't they even have? I kind of remember that I said something about how they sort of were tying him to Sunboy in a way. Maybe in that Sunboy death issue, like they almost could have had those two guys working together. Well, but the final act of Sunboy kind of came off better than like if they had kept him alive and he's just buddies with Polar Boy now,
right?
And like he's whatever, he's not a shill anymore. He's back to being a good
right.
Whatever.
In the first issue, maybe in the second or third page, when we first see Sunboy has become this like pundit or something, and he's on TV. They're showing clips of Polar Boy like fighting some bad guy shortly before he's arrested, and he's dismissive of him on there, like he just doesn't know when to hang it up. He's like embarrassed for his old friend.
Now that you mention it, like they're playing, like some news person's interviewing Sunboy, and they're playing this old footage.
Right.
And if I remember right, it's both of those heroes are in the footage fighting alongside one another.
Oh, they are? Okay.
Yeah, because they're like, oh, we want to show you this old tape of you, Sunboy, when you were a young guy superhero. But then he's also like, Polar Boy's there. I can't believe. Too bad what happened to that guy, right?
Right.
But it's like these two guys were kind of side by side. And then one guy, after there was no more Legion of Superheroes, one guy was trying to stick to it, but now he's in jail for being a terrorist. And the other guy, he went with the flow and became this shill for the government.
But he didn't initially. What's interesting is Sunboy ended up leader for a lot of the 5 years, the 5 year gap. So he was one of the holdouts too.
Yeah.
Only he ends, overcorrecting.
He's the holdout who sold out.
Right, exactly.
And and Polar Boy never sold out. He was a hero to the very end. That was a good start, but they didn't really follow that up the same way.
Right. Instead he gets like some kind of like skull cap stuck on his head for most of the series.
Yeah, it's really sad.
I mean, they're funny stories, but it could have been any other character.
Yeah, exactly.
It didn't have to be Polar Boy.
Yeah, it could have been fucking Colossal Boy. That would have made sense.
When he's a cop. Fucking cop.
Yeah, humiliate a cop, please. A science police officer.
Right.
Paul says, just wait on seeing Polar Boy show off his powers, and we're not going to kill him.
Yeah, I'm wondering like how much of it, his plans for Polar Boy were his, not Giffin's, because he's like, oh yeah, you're going to see lots of Polar Boy soon. He's going to be the...
Well, there is kind of a subplot where they go to Thar, I think, that Giffen didn't work on before Giffen comes back.
What? I don't remember Thar.
That's the planet the Polar Boy's from.
Oh.
Well, it's super hot, so all the people have ice powers there. But as I recall, it's really uninspired visuals of the super hot planet. They live in caves and stuff, but not an interesting issue. And I think they're trying to find Starfinger there or something, and naturally Polar Boy
that's
has to
really
take
brilliant if you think about it, because it explains why he wears all the clothes. Like you'd think a guy with ice powers would not be bothered by the cold, but where he's from, it's so fucking hot that being here, he's probably freezing his ass off.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess I see.
You know what I mean?
Going now, yeah. Like when he's on Thar, he doesn't wear the fur cap and all that stuff. Yeah, he's in his shorts.
Right.
Yeah. I guess he's interesting after all.
Yeah.
Readers Roundup.
What happened to bits of Legion business?
I don't know. They're not calling it LB right now. I think the Tom and Mary Beerbaum must have resurrected bits of LB for when they started it. But yeah, Paul likes Readers Roundup because he probably thought of that back in the 70s, and he's been doing Readers Roundup since the 70s. Willie Holmes of Chicago applauds Greg LaRocque and Larry Malstead as the best the LSH has looked in years, and calls them a blend of Rubenstein and Adams. Neil Adams, I guess, not Art Adams.
Right.
Team's here to stay, Willie. Steve Lytle's back for this fill-in, issue 23, we read it, just to help us get completely caught up.
He had that plot that he'd wanted to do forever.
Like, why did Steve Lytle want to do that plot where he's like, let's make Mon-El really invulnerable for real? I guess he's like these other guys. It's like, and then now we can tell the story of where he went on and on and on and on.
I don't know if that was his aim. Like, I wonder if he wanted to do a story about him freaking out about having to go back to the Phantom Zone. And I also wonder if, like, that was the last issue of his regular run and he couldn't finish it and he quit. And they're like, well, if you ever finish this, we can come back and do it.
He worked on it on his own time for like 2 years and then came back.
Right. And even then, he needed help because he didn't draw that whole book.
Weird. Yeah. Maybe it was some unfinished shit. Like maybe he still didn't draw it this month. He drew it after issue 16 or whatever.
Well, I mean, yeah, he just wasn't cut out to be a monthly guy, it seems like. He probably kept his day job through all of it.
I wonder what his day job was. Computer programmer?
He might have been at Hallmark. I'll have to ask.
All the artists in Kansas City tried to get a job at Hallmark, right?
All the artists settled for Hallmark back when it was an option. Now it would be like awesome. everybody's like, well, if you can't get a good graphic design job or something, you can always go work at Hallmark. But that's, that place is empty now. Like next to no one works there. They've actually sold off most of the office space, and it's pretty sad. I applied there a few times. Went down there. I had a lot of friends who'd worked there over the years. It's pretty amazing. It looked like a big high school full of like artists.
Wow. Did you go and see like Chrome's cubicle?
I think he was he? I thought he was maybe American Greetings.
Oh, probably
or
so.
One of the different ones.
Yeah, could be.
One of my friends who worked there forever knew Charles Schultz pretty well because he was like one of the head guys who emulate his style. I'd tell him stuff like Ivan Brunetti and Chris Ware would say about how irreplicable it is, and he'd just laugh. He'd go, no, I can do it. They would never know the difference.
Well, yeah, I was about to say, like, you're trying to tell me that Schultz didn't draw all those greeting cards and all that stuff?
Oh, no, of course not.
Damn.
He may have drawn a couple of them over the years. I don't know. Or they clipped some of his artwork. But yeah.
I kind of figured that's what it was. It's like photo stats of the comics or something.
He didn't do that CGI movie.
What? Whoa.
What? Several readers suggest that Censor Girl is really Quantum Queen of the Wanderers. It's an interesting theory.
That's a good one, though. It's like, because Quantum Queen was like the one thing from that Adult Legion story that wasn't ever addressed one way or the other. Like, they debunked some of them came true. Quantum Queen, they never did anything.
Fated to join the Legion and perish, according to the Shooter Swan Adult Legion stories of the 60s.
But did you see the previous one? The David Martin, he wants a Legion novel.
I think that could be really cool.
Could be. Did you ever read any of that kind of stuff, like the Star Trek novels or the Star Wars novels or on and on? You read that stuff?
Yeah. Some of them just depends on who's doing it, I guess. I read some Quantum Leap novels, and they were pretty great.
Wow, Quantum Leap.
A lot more, cinematic, elaborate, doing stuff they never dare try to do on the TV show. So.
Huh. I never tried to read it. I always assumed... I mean, I never read anything. I'm too stupid to read a book, I guess, but... I think I saw that kind of stuff and just thought, like, oh, this is going to be some pale imitation, some kind of stupid cash-in of the real thing that's on the movies or TV.
Yeah, and sometimes it is, but
yeah,
almost every series like that has a couple of really good writers who like often make stories way better than anything that the show had to offer.
I can see how, like a whole novel length story could, blow the socks off a fucking half-hour TV episode, right?
Yeah, and if a writer's really good at capturing those characters, it's kind of neat because you can do stories with characters where the actors are long dead, Now, Doctor Who, like that show got canceled like in 89. It was off the air 15 years. It is like what Star Trek is here. It was in England. So they started making books continuing the story. And they got a lot of good writers doing them. A lot of guys became well-known writing these books. And some of them became big television guys, and they were able to orchestrate the return of the show. And then they got several of those writers who wrote those books in the intervening years to come and adapt them into the new show.
Nice.
Which is kind of interesting. Like the fans became the franchise eventually.
That's like Tom and Mary Beerbaum on the Legion comics.
Yeah,
I guess I was just shortchanging myself by never getting into stuff like that. Among other things I always did in my life. I just shortchange myself.
Peter David wrote a bunch of Star Trek books that were well regarded.
I kind of remember that. And he wrote a bunch of the comics too, right?
Yeah, I think so. Then like Marv Wolfman did Marv Wolfman, he wrote like a novelization of Crisis. And I kind of wonder if that would be good. Like maybe it would make more sense. It would be more, I don't know, linear, more comprehensive.
I can't really remember how coherent or not the Crisis series is. It's been so long since I read it. But like the novelization is probably as many pages as the comic book. So maybe it doesn't have as much information as the comic, but maybe that would be a benefit to kind of distill it down into something.
Maybe. And then there's weird shit like, veering too far from subject at hand, but I was thinking it's fucking weird, like V is for Vendetta. They made that god-awful fucking movie, right? And then they put out a novelization. It's like, why don't you just put the Alan Moore book out? Weird.
It is weird.
We're nearing the end.
Yeah. A number of readers have also contributed their guesses as to what happened to Validus on Takron Galtos, but he says everyone solved it correctly.
Right.
Get out the unsubtle writer's doghouse, Karen. I'm coming. Karen Berger, the editor. And so if I recall, there's a big escape on Takron Galtos, which is fucking caused by the crisis. I don't know how. And Takron Galtos is the prison planet where all the 30th century's biggest baddies are stored.
Right. And then Validus like maybe disappears with like some red light and a laugh or something really obvious. Like Darkseid took him, or
Well, yeah, like a tube-shaped portal shows up, and
Right.
yeah, somebody takes Validus. Like there's I think there's even a boom sound effect, and a
Right.
tube-shaped portal shows up, which we all could assume is a boom tube, which all the New
Right.
Gods people use to move around the infinity of space.
where did that play out? Hadn't they already done? Well, Great Darkness Saga was long over by then. Where was he using Validus? Oh, he probably hadn't reverted back to human form, obviously, right?
Yeah, I think the resolution of I think that's in annual number 2, Baxter annual number 2 is when they wrap that up.
The one Kurt Swan drew, maybe. Just looking at that yesterday or the day before. I think you're too hard on that issue. Keith Giffen laid it out. It's kind of an interesting pairing, Keith Giffen, Kurt Swan.
I don't remember it. I'm hard on it, huh?
Yeah, I seem to remember you not loving it, the art.
I don't like Kurt Swan. I think I don't usually like
Fuck.
I don't usually like Kurt Swan
is wrong with you?
Keith Giffen layouts. He's fine, he's good. Just not my thing exactly. I'm more of a Jim Lee man.
I knew that about you. Prefer the Jim Lee version of the Mon-El issue 4 cover.
Oh, it's so much better. Now, have you seen on Comic Art Fans? There's a Giffen redrawn version of that cover, like that he did as a commission. Like somehow there's something missing. It pales in comparison so much.
Because his art style has changed, or because you can't like capture lightning in the bottle twice?
Well, maybe both. Yeah, I mean, it had to have been done sometime in the 2010s, probably.
Yeah.
And like it's
I
the
saw
same
that.
pose, but like his face isn't quite right. Like he doesn't have the whatever the intensity or something or whatever the intelligence in the that's in the original. It's kind of strange.
Well, Al Gordon probably inked the first one, right?
Right. Yeah, I imagine maybe Giffen himself did the whole job on the recreation.
I wonder how much he charged.
David Levine of Oceanside, New York suggests we do a story set entirely inside the Legion living quarters, maybe even a pillow fight.
I feel like that's all of this volume. The entire Larock Levitt's run is just set inside the headquarters.
Yeah, but what if there's a pillow fight and it's like Princess Projectra, Triplicate Girl, and like Shadowlash, she comes out of the shower and all she has on is a towel. And I guess that's it for a Reader's Roundup. Nothing else to speak of in there. But now we get to hear from Robert Rundle himself. He's written back again, this son of a bitch who thinks Karate Kid doesn't deserve a Legion membership. He's back. He's back with his opinions on Legion 18.
This is the guy who hated Karate.
Yeah, his letter was in issue 18. But now he's back in 23.
Funny that there's no mention of the coincidence of them both being in the same letter.
I mean, he must write every month. But he says 18, the Infinite Man Crisis crossover, was certainly his favorite issue of the new series. Loads of Legionnaires in action, plenty of villains, good supporting character appearances, and last and best of all, the return of the Infinite Man. So it just seems like all he wants to see is whatever, just a comic book. Heroes in action, character development shit doesn't matter. As long as they're
heroes with powers.
Yeah, they gotta have superpowers. And like he would have been cool probably with Karate Kid if Karate Kid was a supporting character.
Like if he worked in the commissary with that.
That
didn't they relegate all the silly powered guys to like supporting cast? No Zero Hour.
Bouncing Boy was the chef.
Was he the chef? I thought Moderator Lad was the chef.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And maybe he was like the guy who worked on their ships.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Or something like that. Dumb.
Stupid. But yeah, and also there's a super villain, a returning villain. Probably he loves that he totally gets off on the return of some old shit.
Yeah, but ultimately he's glad that they killed the Infinite Man off because He says, opponents of such tremendous power have a tendency to make unbelievable stories. Usually their defeat is unrealistically handled, and we're wondering how on earth they could have been so stupid as to let themselves get beaten. Like, maybe there's a kernel of truth there because he was so easily taken out. Don't you want them up against overwhelming odds? Like,
Yeah, this dude's kind of mixed up.
right.
I don't get him. Yeah, just more of these comic fans. They just really want it both ways, and
Right.
I don't know how to get through to you that. Yeah, if you want a weak villain, the story is not going to satisfy you. You know.
Right. 90% of these letters make more sense if you envision like someone the intended age for reading comics writing these, like someone from like 4th or 5th grade, but you know these guys are like 28.
Well, yeah, half of them say I've been reading this since.
Right.
Earlier, the guy was like, I've been reading this since Superboy 197, which was 1972 or something, you know? And they're all like, yeah, I read through every issue of Legion every couple of years and
Right.
on and on.
I mean, it's okay that they still read them and enjoy them, but you would think by that age they'd be like, it's just a comic. They wouldn't get hung up on the things they get hung up on.
Yeah, the getting hung up on shit like this villain, he's kind of unreasonably powerful. This is not realistic. It's hard to believe. But also like it's kind of hard for me to believe that a guy with no superpowers could hang with these people who have superpowers. Don't you know that these people are so powerful that it's...
Yeah, this guy, it's either they don't have enough power or they have too much power.
A superhero story with Superboy bringing a white dwarf star, that's realistic enough, that's fine. But the fucking karate guy, that's dumb. Yeah. He doesn't deserve to be here, you know? He says, Rundle says, please try to avoid using White Witch as a sort of deus ex machina too often. You've placed limits on her powers, which is good, so let's see those limits be responsible for her getting put out of action from time to time. That's all they do.
Mm-hmm.
She's never in action. She never does anything. He wants...
Will you make Element Lad a little less ugly?
Yeah, get LaRock to make him less ugly. All the male legionnaires become kind of heavy-jawed. He likes the girls, though.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of a valid critique. A lot of the... I don't know if they're ugly. They have a big jaw. You said they look like Robert Zadar.
Yeah. His Superboy does. Yeah.
I can't remember what his Element Lad looks like. Is Element Lad in this comic? In any of the LaRock's pages? Here's one. He doesn't look ugly. He looks normal, like a guy.
Right.
Wonder what he wants Element Lad to look like. Cuter, more of a baby face. Who knows? Who knows what this guy wants? I don't think he even knows what he wants.
Robert, if you've, in the ensuing 30 years, figured out what it is you want exactly, please comment below.
Yeah, he wants Element Lad to be less ugly, but not unrealistically less ugly. Like, he doesn't want him to be so handsome that he can't be on the team with the other regular-looking, realistically-looking people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like, if a person's too handsome, it's hard to believe that they could be in a story.
If they're too handsome.
So you don't want to go too far into handsomeness, but at the moment he's too ugly.
Yeah, everyone's always beautiful on TV. All the kids. Actually, it'd be cool if they, like, some of them had, like, bad zits. Well, they're all adults here, but I mean, if you're doing, like, teenage Legionnaires. It's actually kind of shocking, now that I think about it, that they didn't make one of those soap opera-y kind of TV shows with these characters, since they love to do kind of like Dawson's Creek as superheroes. Like a whole team of kids seems like a perfect thing for them. Should we put a button on this? Is that what we said?
Yeah.
Weston Supermare. What the hell is that?
What?
Weston Supermare.
Oh, I don't know. Is that a joke?
Very funny, Rob.
He's just a funny guy. Next issue, Suspicion. It's your last chance to guess Censor Girl's true identity. I guess she's going to reveal her in 2 months. Did you ever have a guess? You're probably like me and weren't even reading this. You knew all along who it was going to be.
No. Like when I started reading the contemporary stuff 5 years later, it had just started, but I found out from like a who's who that Censor Girl was Projectra. Like, what? What have you done to my Princess Projectra?
That's it, though. That's the letters pages for Legion number 23.
Long live the Legion, motherfuckers.
See you in 30 days, motherfucker.
So he must have shit the Miracle Machine out at some point. Is that like magic shit? Super powerful radioactive shit? Like if you held that shit, could you wish things?
Interesting. These are interesting ideas.